All right, hey people, welcome back to the stream, and we're gonna continue where we left off. I think it's been just an hour. Yeah, I think it's just been an hour. Anyway, let's continue the playthrough. We just entered into chapter 10. Let me double check something first. Okay, Silent Sky. So this might be the last chapter for this ending A. After I finish ending A, I will restart going to ending B. All right. I don't know if I'm doing Nanami's route tonight. I know that takes a lot of time. Actually, I don't even know how much time chapter 10 is gonna take. So we might end up just having finished with ending A, and we'll move to ending B tomorrow. Although tomorrow I'll start later because I have dinner. Anyway. Let's continue. I was standing atop a body of water, incredibly clear, transparent water. It was shallow, reaching only my ankles, but it was not cold. Intermittently, the waves whispered in my ears. I was tightly grasping the handles of the wheelchair. Shogun, no, the real Nishido Takagi was right before me, his head adorned with his knitted hat cap. He sat ever so slightly hunched forward in his wheelchair. There wasn't a single thing surrounding us. Neither shells buried in the sand, nor seabirds elegantly soaring through the sky. Nothing so expressively emulated of the sea could be seen. There was no signs of light, only the blue sky, and the sky crystal clear sky. The terrain was completely flat all around me, with the horizon stretching as far as the eye could see. This place was not the real world. Together with the sound of breaking waves, I heard Shogun's voice. From where I was standing, I couldn't see his expression. The tone of his voice didn't carry any particular feeling of lamentation. In reality, his words felt like they were the casual passing remarks. Small, wrinkled and withered away, all of his hair has fallen out. Was he aging prematurely? That illness was supposed to be rare, affecting only 1 out of 8 every 8 million people. A gruesome scene etched into my memories began to rise to the surface. Oh, fuck. Wait. You know what? Wait a second. Let me double check something, because I just opened another browser and felt like I didn't even start streaming. Okay, I actually kind of started. I don't know. Let's continue.
反粒子は数学的に言えば過去へ向かうものだから。ストックすればするほどギガロマニアックスには現在の状態とのズレが発生し、やがてその矛盾により 存在としての自己崩壊へ至る。
As he spoke, Shogun didn't move an inch from in his wheelchair. What was he looking at? Could he even see at all?
力を使えば使うほどこの病は進行しちゃうんだ。
ギガロマニアックスの力で治せばいいじゃないか。
力を使えば病は進行する。端的に言えば力を使ってもプラスマイナスゼロっていうことさ。何も変わらない。
どうして僕みたいな肝オタのヘタレ野郎を作ったの？もっと強くて行動的でかっこいいイケメンにすればよかったのに。
人を一人、しかもギガロマニアックスの力を使える人間を生み出すのは簡単なことじゃなかった。君を生み出したとして1年近く昏睡しちゃったくらいだよ。
僕は未完成だったってわけ。
だからこそ君はとても人間らしい。
フォローしなくてもいい。
本心だよ。
I clicked my tongue. I really did hate this guy.
リミにはいつも力を使うなって怒られたよ。
彼女は君を助けたいんでしょう。
でも僕はリミの忠告に従うわけにはいかない。今の危機的状況は僕の IR2 がきっかけなんだから。
IR2. That strange scribble on the back of my essay.
IR2 はある科学者の目に留まり、やがてのぞみテクノロジー社によって研究が始められた。それがプロジェクトノア。言ってみれば人工的にギガロマニアックスの能力を発生させる装置。僕が計画に気づくことができたのはリミと出会ったからなんだ。彼女がひどい拷問を受けていたのはそのプロジェクトの一環だった。ノアのシステムを効率化するために必要だったのがコード3。ギガロマニアックスが力を使う過程で放出する特殊な脳波のもの。それを手に入れるためにのぞみの社長ノロセはリミに過酷な拷問を加えた。強烈な負の感情を抱くとき、ギガロマニアックスは力に覚醒し、理想度を獲得するからね。
Once again, I remembered Senna's words.
バイオリズムの上昇によって中脳変影系ニューロンのドーパミンが過剰分泌されたとき、理想度は現れる。それは危機的な状況や興奮、悲しみ、憎しみ、笑いなど人それぞれだ。ドーパミン分泌量が多ければそれだけ観測しやすくなる。
君が僕にちょっかいをかけてきたのもそのため。
君を覚醒させるためにだ。ごめん。
Rumi and I weren't the only ones. There were others who had undergone severe mental and physical torture because of Project Noah. Ayase, Senna, Kozupi, and even Nanami. Cruel trials have been laid out for all of them. Also, they could become gigalomaniacs.
IR2 から生み出されたノア2は僕が自分の手で止めなくちゃならない。でも僕はこんな体だ。満足に動くこともできない。それに僕のコードサンプルを欲しがる望みから狙われるようにもなっちゃって。
That was to say nothing of how he was hospitalized at AH Tokyo General Hospital, a place which had hidden ties to the Nozomi group.
だから身を隠さなくちゃいけなかった。
幻の病室のアミーちゃんか。
Yo, it's Abby.
あそこに入ってこられたのはリミだけだったよ。僕は身動きが取れなくなって、それで
僕を作ったのか。
Grogan weakly nodded.
リミには君を消すように何度も言われたんだ。命を削る行為だからやめろって。でも僕に残された命は長くない。力を使わなくたってあまり差はないんだよね。
His voice was deeply serene. He had a certain sense of wiseness to him. Perhaps it was the one you could only get from living out your days under a death sentence.
それに君が覚醒して力を使えるようになれば僕の命は持たないだろうか。
僕と君は一心同体っていうこと。
そうだね。
でも、一つだけ約束。もう、妄想はしない。ね。タクの妄想力はとっても強いから。妄想をすればするほど、本物のあなたの命が削られていっちゃうんだ。
If I tried to keep my promise to Remy, I couldn't go help her. Even if I could, I wouldn't be able to do a thing. It wouldn't matter what I tried. They'd turn the tables on me in an instant.
君の命はあとどれぐらい持つ？
きっと今日か明日までじゃないかな。
そこまで。
I was stunned. I hadn't expected him to have so little time left.
僕が覚醒しちゃったから。
気にしなくていいよ。君の覚醒は僕にとって本望だから。
君が死んだら僕はどうなる？
君は僕と一心同体であると同時にリアルブートされたことによって現実の人間になった。生まれ方は特殊かもしれないけど君は人間だよ。
僕が消えれば君は助かるの？
無駄だよ。せいぜい寿命が数日から数週間伸びるぐらいじゃないかな。でもそんな愚かな選択肢を選ぶのはやめるんだ。君にはノア2を破壊してほしい。そのために力を使うことを遠慮しないでほしい。
言われなくても分かってる。君に遠慮するほど僕はお人よしじゃない。
Rogan's shoulders shook frankly as he laughed. Making him laugh was the last thing I meant to do, so that annoyed me.
君が目覚めてくれてよかった。勝手な話で迷惑かもしれないけど、あとは君に託す。
Suddenly, the feeling of the wheelchair's handles disappeared. Before I knew it, the wheelchair he was sitting on began to leave me behind. As it moved, it almost seemed to glide across the surface of the water. Its two wheels cut into the water, making waves as they turned. I have no intention of following him. Instead, I absently watched him go.
僕の役目は終わった。
勝手だね。僕に丸投げ。
少し疲れちゃって。眠らせてよ。
He turned to me from his wheelchair. As usual, I couldn't read his expression, but his voice showed an intense urgency.
時間がない。急いで。ノロセはノア2を本格的に稼働させた。こうなったらノア2を直接破壊するしかないんだ。頼んだよ。
And then, as if embraced by a cloud of mist, he began to disappear. The very colors of this mental world soon slowly began to fade.
君に頼まれる筋合いなんてない。僕自身が決めたことをやるだけ。
The sound of the waves became more distant. Just like Remy had once, I burned this perfect, clear, crystal clear sky into my memories. And then I gently closed my eyes. Nussberger. A reporter on the radio was reading the news with a grave tone.
現在までに確認された死傷者の数は233人ですが、この数は最終的に3万人を超えるとみられ、気象庁の発表によりますと、今回の地震の規模は震度7、マグニチュードは 7.8 と関東大震災に匹敵する規模です。渋谷では建物の一部が倒壊し、大規模な陥没も発生している模様です。首都高渋谷線が高架の倒壊により全線通行止め。公共交通機関では山手線など全線が運転を見合わせております。
Static mixed in with the news, until eventually the reporter spoke no longer.
ダメだわ。また聞こえなくなった。
Momose shook and hit the old radio with her hand. But upon realizing she was getting nowhere, she let out a heavy sigh.
古いから使い物にならないわね。
Forcing a smile, she looked to the side. She could see the figures of Kishimoto Ayase and Kusunoki Yua walking along, expressions of fatigue coloring their faces. Both of their uniforms were covered in soot, making it clear how laborious the trek here had been. And yet the great swords they were holding, these swords did not have a speck of dust on them. Instead, they shone with unclouded, brutal radiance. After the earthquake, Iwa and Ayase had walked back to Shibuya from Yoyogi, went straight to Frisha office, then joined up in Momose. Waiting for the missing band to return, the three stayed near the office throughout the night. Even though the earthquake had put the building on the verge of collapse, they had remained all the same. But in the end, band had never shown. Momose suggested leaving Shibuya immediately, something Ayase clearly took an issue with.
グラジオールが目覚めたの。早く他の黒騎士と合流しないと。
Ayase asserted her feelings of urgency by tugging on Yua's hand, wanting to reach the rubble-laden heart of Shibuya as quickly as they could. In the end, Yua and Momose had no choice but to follow along. It was 7 a.m. Not even an hour had passed since the sky had begun to brighten. There was not a single trace of the refreshing morning air. The utter mayhem that had cloaked in darkness was slowly being exposed by the rising sun. And right now, the three girls found themselves in the midst of it. The city of Shibuya had transformed into the very image of hell itself. Roads were torn to oblivion, asphalt protruded from earth. A number of buildings had collapsed, their debris scattered in broken chunks along the sides of the road. Nearly every window that could be seen was broken, and a massive billboard had fallen from its usual perch atop the building's roof. One would not have to walk far to see countless corpses left undisturbed, littered among the chaos. For every body, Momose witnessed the same act played out inside her head, one in which she clasped her hands together in pity for their demise. But there were just far too many. It was only part way through that she could not take it anymore, realizing the only way to retain her sanity was to ignore them outright. The remaining people they would occasionally pass by had lost all expression, existing only to stagger aimlessly through the streets. A group of men had come together to try and help survivors buried beneath the rubble, but it did not seem like there was much they could do without heavy lifting equipment. Momose took another glance at what Yua was holding in her hands. A D-Sordo. Ayase explained them to her. Much like Adric, they were swords that could be taken out of thin air. What Ban had told her had been true. And yet Yua seemed only shocked and bewildered about possessing one for herself.
ねえ岸本さん。
Ayase, walking slightly ahead of the group, paid no attention to Momose's call. The expression on her face made it clear her patience was wearing thin.
このディソードを持つ人はあなたたちを含めて全部で7人いるっていうこと？
そうよ。
他の人たちがどこにいるのかわかる
わからない。
の？だったら
感じるのよ。意志。こっちで間違いないわ。
Ayase was effectively a brick wall. With no other options left, Momose repeated the same words for what she felt like 1,000 times.
今むやみに歩き回るのは危ないわ。ひとまず安全なところに避難するべきよ。
ダメよ。時間がないの。
もしかしたら他の黒騎士だったかしら。その人たちだって避難場所にいるかもしれないでしょ。
そうですよ、岸本さん。私も避難場所に行くべきだと。
Ayase suddenly came to a halt, as though Yua's backing had possibly made some sense to her. She narrowed her eyes. And then she looked beyond the rugged Dogenzaka roads that no car could traverse.
え？だって何？
At the end of Ayase's gaze was a lone girl walking away from the station. She was wearing a Sume Academy uniform, though it was far more tattered than either Ayase or Yua's. And with only her left hand, she was holding an enormous cross-shaped sword to her chest. Her gait was marked unsteady. It looked as though she could collapse at any moment.
大変！
Momose's body jiggled as she ran toward the girl, toward Nishijo Nanami. The D-Sordo Nanami was carrying had caught her eye, but instead of prying in order to sustain her curiosity, she focused only on supporting the girl's petite frame.
大丈夫？よく頑張ったわね。今病院に連れて行ってあげるから気をしっかり持つのよ。
Nanami's eye responded in a blank confusion to Momose's word of encouragement.
なんて言ったの？
Oh my god. Nanami really does love her Uni-chan, man. To the point that her mind broke. Her mind really broke for her Uni-chan, man. Damn. Well, Yua and Ayase belatedly ran up behind Momose.
この子、西条くんの妹さんです。
Emoto.
そう。黒騎士の資格があるのにうなずけるよ。匠の妹な。
二人ともこの子を運ぶのを手伝って。なんとか病院に連れて行かないと。
Nanami groaned in pain.
右手？
Momose inadvertently glanced toward Nanami's right hand, gasping in surprise when she did.
だってひどい。こんな。
Yua and Ayase were not able to grasp why Momose was so distraught. While the bandage over Nanami's right hand had indeed stained with blood, it did not seem to be that serious of an injury. However, in Momose's eyes, Nanami's hand had been severed from her bandaged wrist. Medical measures had been taken, it's still an open wound. With a blank look on her face, Ayase tried to grab Nanami's right hand, but her outstretched hand passed only through empty air. Like a holographic image, Nanami's fingers lacked any substance. A drop of blood trickled down from the red-stained bandage and fell onto Ayase's hand.
もうそう。
リミさんに助けてもらって。リミさんって崎畑リミさん？
知ってるの？
ええ、西条くんのお友達の。
Yua had always held the suspicion that Takumi was the new gen culprit, so she knew a fair amount about his background. This also extended to those that would frequently come into contact with him. Therefore, it was only natural for her to have conducted investigation on Nishijo Nanami and Sakihata Rimi. Well, it does make sense, but I kind of wish they made some little scenes about, Yua just looking from the background or something like that. 'Cause this is, I mean, I get it. It makes logical sense, but it's just like, it also felt like, In contrast to Yua, Ayase abandoned her typical aloof expression. grimacing at the mere mention of Rimi's name.
崎畑リミも7人の黒騎士の一人。そうなんですか？
Ayase recalled yesterday's incident at the hospital. She could remember being addressed by Rimi's apologetic voice. Oh, nice. Here we know.
岸本さん、タクに近づかないで。目覚めさせたくないの。君には自覚がないの。黒騎士の一人としての。私が一人で何とかするから。とても美しいわ、その思いは。でもそれは大いなる意志の望むことじゃない。私も望んでいないわ。あなた一人に全てを背負わせるなんて。
黒騎士云々の話は今は置いときましょう。とにかく早く病院に連れて行かないと血が止まらないわ。
Momasa gently placed her handkerchief on Nanami's open wound.
すごい熱だし顔色も悪い。急がないと。
Oh my god, Nanami.
お兄に会いたいよ。
Tears trickled from Nanami's vacant eyes. Right at that moment, something happened. In an instant, the highway that they were standing on collapsed with deafening roar. Oh my god! They all lost their footing, helplessly entering free fall at gravity's mercy. Oh my god! To them, it's like they were falling into the deepest, darkest, lowest circle of hell. Losing herself in the illusion, Momose raised a scream so loud it betrayed her age entirely. Oh my god. When it came to, dark clouds covered the sky overhead. The dark night had come to an end before I knew it. There wasn't a shed of blue sky in sight. I was hit with a wave of depression. The sky could not have been more gloomy. Countless sirens from ambulances and fire trucks blared off in the distance. A multitude of helicopters were in the sky, circling the city like flies. My head was racked with pain, like someone was putting a jackhammer to it. It felt even worse than after the last earthquake. I tried to remember what happened before my memories had cut off. The sky turning white, Shogun mentioning the third wave. Melt. I ignored my headache and stood up, only to lose all words. The usual scenery was entirely absent. It was like a scene out of the end of the millennium thing that everyone had been freaking out almost a decade ago. Shibuya was on the verge of collapse. Traffic lights, roadside trees, and buildings had all fallen to the ground. The jumbotrons, the most iconic part of Scramble Crossing, really had cracks ripping through them and were entirely silent. The stairs leading down to the subway was buried beneath the rubble of their own ceilings. The guard around the Yamanote line had fallen apart, and the railway had been ripped to shreds. More people than I could count were lying on the ground. Blood and guts clung to the scattered debris. Some remained motionless, some moaned in pain, some screamed for help. Some were covered in dust, crawling on all fours without care as how it made them. Some only cried, tightly cradling another motionless body in their arms. I could smell all the blood, the rusty smell mixed with the stench of something burning. Everything was covered with a thick odor of dust. Far in the distance, plumes of black smoke rose like smoke signals. This was the power of Noah 2. It was horrifying. This was already on the scale of a weapon of mass destruction. I now understood why Shogun wanted to put an end to this. Come to think of it, where was Shogun? When I came back to myself, I surveyed my surroundings. There was a bent wheelchair lying pretty close to me, and right beside it, his delicate frame was lying there. I ran over to him and panicked and lifted him up.
おいしっかりして
He didn't react. Not even his inner voice said anything. Oh god, was he dead? I put my ear to his mouth. As faint as it was, he was still breathing, but he was still unconscious. I tried hitting him slightly on the cheeks a few times, but to no avail.
松はどこにあるの
If I didn't know where it was, there was no way I could make it in time to say Rimi or Nanami. I should have asked him what that when I had the chance. Flicking my tongue, I took my phone out of my pocket. It was off, and despite my many attempts to get it working, it stayed that way. It was no more than garbage now. Aside from Shogun, who else would know where to find it? Think, goddammit. I didn't have time for this. While I was wandering around, doing absolutely goddamn nothing, that Norris guy could be ready to kill Remy at any moment. Then who? Who was someone I could trust? Someone who knew about Noah too.
君たちは特別な存在だ。中でも一番特別なのは、その目、誰の目を産み落とした少年。
畑野一世。
Senna's dad, one of the founding members of Project Noah, the person who was nowhere to be found right now. Not to mention, I'd never met him before. Wait, it was possible we passed each other on the street before, actually. Kosupi had told me all about this homeless lifestyle, with the guy always wandering around Shibuya.
見つけるしかない。
With the surprisingly light body of Shogun on my back, I mindfully made my way through the debris. I didn't have a clue as to where Hatano-san was, but I had no choice. I had to find him, no matter what. As light as Shogun's body was, it was still nearly 20 kilograms. It was hard enough just carrying him around Shibuya, but it was even worse factoring with all the uneven roads. I wasn't one for exercise. I mean, hell, my daily routine consisted of me just sitting in front of my computer all day. I considered finding a way to get Shogun to the hospital, but with Shibuya the way it was, I doubted I could even get an ambulance. Even the gentle hill that was no Gonzaga was doing its best to drain all my energy. I could barely breathe, and my whole body was gushing out buckets of sweat. Wiping the sweat off my forehead, I took a quick break to catch my breath. Oh, good thing she was singing, man. Suddenly, I could faintly hear someone's voice. Someone was singing, their voice racked with loneliness, but not without hope. Their soothing voice washed over me. I heard the singing somewhere before. Back at the concert. Even in spite of the glaring lights overwhelming my visions and glaring sound shaking the entire airtight building, I still managed to take it in. But this time, I was in the middle of the road, where I couldn't see a single sign of life. Yet in the center of this collapsed city, dominated by death, I could hear her. I put Shogun down and surveyed my surroundings once again, but the only people I could see were the collapsed corpses strewn across the city. I did my best to avoid looking at them, instead of focusing on trying to find Ayase. Where the hell was her voice coming from? The road in front of me was totally caved in. Looking at it, the hole it had created was incredibly big. There was definitely a subway tunnel beneath it. I didn't want to believe it at first, but even so, I peered down the edge of the hole. It was about 5 meters deep. There was a pretty fair amount of rubble piled up at the bottom, and that was where Ayase had fallen.
今助けるよ。
I jumped down to the hole. I didn't stick the landing whatsoever, instead basically slamming into the rubble while barely avoiding falling over. Ayase's leg was pinned down under the pretty sizable slab of concrete, stopping her from moving. I really did give it my best effort, but moving it just wasn't possible on my own.
私だけじゃない。他に3人いるわ。君の妹も。
ナナミが
What the hell was she doing here? Hadn't that Norisa guy kidnap her?
ナナミナナミ
Enduring the pain in my legs, I stood up and yelled out for my Emoto, but I got no reply. Looking around me, I only saw one other person beside Ayase. There was a pretty hefty woman lying face down on the ground, and while she wasn't moving, she only seemed to be unconscious. Nanami and the one other person were absent. Maybe they'd been buried alive. I had to find them, right this second. My eyes shot to the top of the hole. There was enough dust to make anyone hack their lungs out, but beyond that I could see the circular shape of the sky above. I thought about Shogun, who had laid on the road up there. I remember what Rimi had told me.
妄想をすればするほど本物のあなたの命が削られていっちゃうんだ。
But I couldn't hesitate here. I drew my D sword entirely from thin air. Consciously avoiding looking at her leg, I sat down near Ayase and peered into her face. I stared into her eyes, refusing to look at anything else. That should do the trick.
妄想するんだ
A strong one. A really strong one.
綾瀬の足の上にある瓦礫は大きなものじゃない。重くない。簡単に足を引っ張り出せる。他の二人も助け出せる。
Me and Ayase, we only needed mutual recognition between us two Gigalamaniacs. Because once we had that, then our delusion was sure to become reality. What? The power of Schizo! Schizoism. Out of nowhere, Ayase, smiling in relief, she gently stroked my cheek with her fingers.
グラジオールの導きね。君ここに来てくれたのは。
I blinked nervously. Exactly as I deluded it to be, the large slab of concrete pinning Ayase's leg had now turned into a heap of smaller pieces. Pushing away some of the debris, Ayase slipped her leg right out. I really hadn't expected that to go so damn well. Starting to move, she massaged her ankle. Luckily, her injuries didn't seem all that bad.
綾瀬の歌が聞こえたんだ。それに導かれたんだよ。
そうよかった歌い続けてきて。
Helping Ayase up, I stood and took a look around.
ナナミは
I still didn't see any signs of my Emoto. Had my delusion failed after all, or was Nanami already? I began to feel anxious. I heard a voice. Looking in the direction of it, I saw a hand reaching out for the gap inside the rubble. And so I took that hand, gripped its slender fingers, and peered into the gap. The gap was almost like a tunnel. And in that tunnel was a familiar-looking girl wearing glasses. I felt like it's a Lassie you. Me too, bro. I mean... Okay, from Takumi's perspective, at least.
なぜか急にこの隙間ができて、ついさっきまで全く身動きが取れなかったんですけど。
The girl averted her eyes from me, with a face that seemed almost apologetic.
手をしっかり掴んでて。
I tightly gripped Yua's hand, and then I pulled as hard as I possibly could away from the gap. Ayase helped as well. With the two of us pulling Yua with all our might, she managed to break free from the rubble without too much trouble.
ありがとう。ござい。
It was covered from head to toe in dust. A few pieces of concrete were tangled up in her long hair. But even with all that, Yua seemed completely uninjured. Now, Nanami. Leaving Yua with Ayase, I started to search for Nanami. Given Yua had managed to break free, I could only assume that my delusion had actually worked. If that were true, then Nanami should have been into some rubble somewhere that I could yank her free from. And lo and behold, that was exactly the case. As I searched through the tons and tons more rubble, I managed to catch a glimpse of Nanami's face through a crack in the debris.
ナナミ
I called to her, but she didn't respond. She must have fainted. Reaching out, I went to touch her shoulder, but hesitated. Oh man, yeah, that really, yeah, shit, man, yeah, man, that really fucks you up. That really fucks you up, man. A memory from yesterday flashed into my mind of Nanami vanishing into particles right before my eyes. No, this has to be the real Nanami. Gathering my resolve, I gathered her by the shoulder, or more specifically by her blouse. I could actually touch her. I could feel her warmth. Just like I had with Yua a bit ago, I pulled her out with all my strength. Unlike Ayase or Yua, however, Nanami's uniform was stained with blood. Her hand, especially, was covered in red. Regardless, I laid her down on the ground, then went to check her breathing. She seemed to be in pain, but she was still breathing.
よかった
Even so, I couldn't help but worry about her right hand. It was absolutely covered in blood. And yet, when I tried to grab it, my fingers slipped right through it. A delusional hand? Then that could only mean Nanami's right hand was...
ごめんごめん巻き込んで
A groan leaked from Nanami's mouth. Her face was caked in dust. I gently stroked her cheek and watched as her eyelids slowly began to open. Her gaze faintly wandered for a moment before finally landing on me.
ナナミ
And at that very moment, Nanami's expression warped and changed. Tremendous tears broke free from her eyes. Her left hand firmly grasped my own. She whispered to me so happily. It felt as if she never wanted to let me go. But when I heard those whispers, I responded with a slight shake of my head.
ナナミの本当のお兄は僕じゃないよ
My memories are so cloudy. That was how Nishijo Nanami felt. Her brother's words had been triggered in her heart, and now she felt as if she had two brothers. However, what her heart told her was that it was not just as if she had two, but that she really did have two. Her mind flashed back to the past and remembered her two brothers' faces. One of them seemed quite pathetic, and one of them was covered in wrinkles. And yet, despite these distinctions, she was still convinced that she only had a single brother. Something was not adding up, something between her memories and cognition. What was reality? What was illusion? She did not know, and that scared her. To escape this, she attempted to empty her minds of all thought, when suddenly her own voice audibly rippled outward. Nana, you need to stay strong. Wow, she calls herself Nana. That's so cute. The next thing she knew, she was standing in the hallway, illuminated by the setting sun. She could smell disinfectant, and before her stood a rather plain door. She reached out toward it and took hold of the handle, and then, through no will of her own, her hand opened the door.
ああ、お兄、またご飯食べないつもり？ちゃんと食べてっていつも言ってるじゃん。出ないと元気になんないよ。あ、もしかしてグリーンピースが入ってるから？子供じゃないんだし、いい加減好き嫌いやめたら？そりゃナナだってグリーンピース嫌いだから残したくなる気持ちはわかるけど、ちゃんと食べてくんないと
So cute.
ナナが怒られるんだからね。あの怖い看護師長さんに。
ナナミ、
何？
今まで辛く当たってごめん。
お兄が謝るのって珍しいじゃん。
もう僕のために無理をする必要はないんだ。 身を隠さなくちゃならなくなった。だからお前はもうここには来なくていい。
何のつもり？
さようなら。
The power of schizo power. The schizo power. And that was where her memories cut off. Those memories about her real brother. Her brother had been suffering from a serious illness, leading her to graciously spend many years tending to him in the hospital. No matter how much time had passed, she knew she had to stay strong so that she could best take care of him in his time of need. For the past year and a half, these things had disappeared from her memory entirely. She had forgotten that those memories had even existed. In exchange for that, her brother had continued living on his own in good health right there in Shibuya. Her mother had asked her to routinely check in on him, leading her to sometimes drop by on the way home from school. And thus she had done so, thinking nothing of it. After all, he was her brother. Checking in on him might as well have already been routine. She had never housed any doubts about it.
どうしてナナは忘れちゃってたんだろう。
Nearly 30 minutes had passed since she had been rescued from beneath the rubble, and now she had finally been reunited with her real brother. There he was, lying still on the road. He was still breathing, but remained unconscious. His body was small, wrinkled, emaciated, and incredibly weak as she remembered. It was the brother from so long ago whom she had always known.
こんなのひどいよ。ナナはお兄に文句ばっかり言ってたけど。
Though her brother did not reply, she clung to his small body all the same, letting loose a flood of tears.
お兄のこと一度だって忘れたいなんて思ったことなかったのに。勝手だよ。わがまますぎだよ。
The sound of metal lightly scraping against something came from within her brother's clothes. And a moment later, something slipped free from his pocket. It was what Nanami had been searching for. When she lost her right hand, she lost it as well. A flimsy cheap bangle with a snowflake motif. Confused, she stared at her real brother's face, but his eyes, buried in wrinkles, did not open in return. Nanami picked up the bangle with her left hand. She remembered how it felt to touch. It was her quote-unquote brother's first present to her, Nanami's greatest treasure. Nanami lifted her gaze, unconsciously searching for her other brother. He was holding a long sword, and his back was turned to her. But he was walking away. He was leaving this place. Even without saying a word, Nanami could understand that much. The fact that he might leave without saying even a word to her left her wrought with a terrible
言
loneliness.
っておいで。
Nanami's brow furrowed in confusion, and she sought to search around herself.
今声が。
It was her brother's voice. That much she indeed remembered. The voice of her brother, who should have been unconscious.
彼は僕と一心同体。もう一人のお兄なんだから。
Whether it was truly her brother's voice or a mere hallucination, Nanami could not tell. And yet, regardless of which it was, she whispered all the same.
わかった。
She whispered to her brother, who still lay on the ground. Nanami stood up and walked toward her older brother's back. She hardly had any strength left. Day after day, she had been trapped in a pitch-black room, forced to take part in some sick tableau of agonizing crucifixion. She could not even remember how many times she thought she would die. Her right hand in particular caused her tremendous amounts of pain, as if a chisel was struck into it all the way to the bone. The sensation that she lacked her hand, together with an illusion that it still remained, was tearing her mind into two. She was exhausted, both mentally and physically. If she lost focus, there was no doubt she would fall into the ground, too drained to get back up again. Therefore, she had to make a desperate effort to reach her hand out at this very instant. Even if it took more effort than she could give, she would do everything in her power to make him stop.
待って。
She narrowly managed to squeeze something out, and thankfully he heard. He halted his stride and looked back toward Nanami. Even though she had managed to stop him, she was lost on what exactly to say to him. The reality that this person was not her brother at all, the conviction that this person was her brother to the end. Those two feelings had blended together in her head, making them even harder to discern. But she gripped her bangle tightly in her left hand. It had been his gift to her, one that felt cold to touch but warm to the heart. The very existence of this bangle linked both him and her together. That was how she felt. And that answer was all she needed. Her hesitation instantly faded.
お兄は本当のお兄じゃないかもしれないけど、頼りにならなくてオタクさんでアニメキャラのお人形さんばっかり集めてて、口が悪くて愛想もなくて意地悪なことばっかり言うけど、お兄もナナのお兄だよ。
Trying her hardest to fight back tears, Nanami smiled as best she could.
ありがとう、ナナミ。
On gazing his expression, she saw that her other brother seemed a little embarrassed, and with that relief washed over Nanami, before slowly putting her consciousness to rest. Nanami nearly collapsed, and I hurriedly went to catch her. She lost consciousness. Her face was pale, and she was clearly having trouble breathing.
早く病院に運ばないと、このままじゃ危ないわ。
The hefty woman who had introduced herself as Momose peered at Nanami's face as she voiced her concern. Next, she turned to Shogun.
そっちに寝かせてる子もね。
I decided to lead Nanami in Mose's hand's care.
二人を頼みます。
あなたはどうする？
探さなくちゃいけない人がいて。
So I could learn the whereabouts of Noah too. I asked Nanami, since she had been taken where she was kidnapped, but she wasn't too sure of it herself. In the end, I had no choice but to find Hatano.
必要なことなのね。グラジオールを倒すために。
グラジオール。あ、
Replace that with Noah too, and
そうだよ。
Ayas' expression stiffened. She took a single step toward me. By the way she slightly dragged her leg, I could tell she had genuinely been injured.
一緒に行くわ。私も。
その必要はないよ。
Even though I tried to tell her no, she only shook her head in refusal.
うちに集まらないと。
綾瀬も、それに岩も。畑野っていう人を探してほしい。
At the mere mention of her name, Yua jumped a little from her hiding spot behind
そ
Momose.
の人がノア2の場所知ってるから一緒に行動しなくても僕はみんなの見聞きしたことがわかる。だから今は手分けして探して。
It's convenient his power is to literally read people's mind from a distance. It's like a super version of whatever Kuzubi is doing. Anyway, that was the best option we had at the moment, and we had to be quick about it. There was no guarantee we'd be safe if another earthquake struck.
わかった。
Ayasa seemed to agree with me, though she didn't look all that happy about it.
なんだかよくわからないけど、
野呂瀬源一が全ての黒幕です。
そういうこと。それなら妹さんたちのことは私に任せなさいな。
Momose Stan puffed out her chest in a display of bravado, and then she gave me a quick nod, likely an attempt to cheer me on.
ただし無茶しちゃダメよ。それと一つ頼まれてほしいんだけど、バンちゃん、ヘラヘラ笑ってるうさんくさそうな中年刑事を見たら私に連絡するように伝えてくれる？
He's already dead. She doesn't know. Did she mean Ban Yasuji? I knew all about how he died. He had been shot and killed by his own partner. I'd unconsciously seen it all unfold. I fully intend to tell Momose-san this, but...
まったく、あの人はこんな時にどこをほっつき歩いてるんだか。まあ、案外どこかで怪我人を助けてるのかもしれないけどね。
Momose had to go and say something like that. And now I could no longer bring myself to tell her the truth.
というわけでよろしく。
はい。
Without meaning to, I nodded, making a promise I'll never be able to keep. But that had been the only answer I could have ever thought to make.
西条くん。
With her head lowered, Yua spoke with a barely audible voice. For a good while now, she had been nervously taking peeks at me, which made me think she had something to say.
あなたのこと疑ってごめんなさい。
あ、
私、西条くんを傷つけるようなこと言って。
The lens of her glasses were covered in dust, and yet I knew very well that behind them, her eyes were wet with tears.
謝っても許してもらえるとは思ってないです。それでも謝らせてください。ごめんなさい。
She bowed her head deeply. I didn't reply. All I did was turn my back to her.
僕のベースにあるセーラのフィギュ
はい。
ア、よかったらもらってくれる？
Back when she deceived me, I couldn't have been more shocked. But now I understood why she had done what she'd done. So it just felt wrong to say I forgive you, or something along those lines. It was true that I had always thought of her as my enemy, but I had no right to make her bow to me, nor any right to forgive her.
いいんですか？
もらってほしい。
はいはい、また一緒にフィギュア買いに行きましょうね。
And with that, Yua put on the same gentle smile she had when we first met. I nodded to her in response. I exchanged looks with both Ayase and Momose. Then I etched the image of Nanami and Shogun into my eyes one last time. And so I began walking along alone among the mountain of rubble once again. Shinsen Station of the Inokashira line was one stop from Shibuya, with it taking only about a minute to arrive there by train. Oh, wait, that's true? Wait, let me check that out. Because I always take the Inokashira line. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I know what it is. I know what it is now. Yeah. The station itself was situated within an underground tunnel, resulting in only natural light being the beams seeping in from the opening at the end of the platform. Wasn't Shinsen like a... It's not underground, it's over the ground station. Let me double check. Oh, there is an underground portion. Am I misremembering? What the fuck? Was that Because when I ride the Inukashira line, it's always above ground. What the hell? Anyway. Did they read that? Okay. The station itself was situated within the underground tunnel, resulting in the only natural light being the beam seeping in from the opening at the end of the platform. Due to the earthquake, all of the lights had gone out, enveloping the area in a far thicker darkness than usual. Carefully supporting Orihara Kozue's body, Aoi Senna set foot on to the platform. There had been no need to buy a ticket. Not a single staff member was present in the vicinity, and none of the ticket machines were in service. Only a glance was necessary to understand how horribly warped the railway tracks had become. It was no wonder that the trains had suspended operation the day before. Kozue's left leg was drenched in blood. She had been deeply cut by a broken glass during the earthquake. Senna had attempted to staunch the flow of blood with a towel, but the wound was far worse than she had supposed. Basic first aid would not suffice. Gigilomaniacs are not unable to use their powers to heal wounds. To the brain, pain is an inescapable reminder of reality. Thus, Gigilomaniacs cannot form any sort of mutual recognition to the effect of "I'm not wounded." The injury didn't happen. Human instinct would never allow it. Even with Kozue's teary protests, Senna remained wordless as she marched intently towards Shinsen Station. Well, Kozue, you don't have to join Senna, but I guess I think Senna was always gonna go forward anyway, but Kozue continued to follow her. I don't know. It's 9:57. Come on, let's finish this before 12. Nah, I kind of doubt it. Anyway, let's go. Only one thing held her focus. Something she refused to divert any attention from. When they at last searched the deserted platform, Senna quickly pulled back the arm she had been using to support Kozue. With no strength remaining in one of her legs, Kozue immediately collapsed to the ground. Kozue lifted her gaze in bewilderment, but Senna paid her no mind. Glaring motionlessly at a certain point in the distance, the black-haired girl gritted her teeth.
やった。見つけた。
At the end of her gaze, in the dark recesses of the platform sat a lone human figure.
セナさんのパパなのだ。
It was a homeless man clad in filthy rags. In his hands, he held a sign that read, "The hearts of people face annihilation." Senna slowly approached the man.
誰に向けたメッセージだ。
Her voice was cold and unfeeling, the tone that could freeze all who came in contact with her.
負を生へと変換できる者たちへの遺言だよ、セナ。
Keeping his head hung low, the homeless man did not even look at his daughter in the eye as he dispassionately spoke her name.
お前に慣れ慣れしく名前を呼ばれたくない。この半年、ずっと考えてきた。お前をどうやって殺すか。
ありがとう。
どうして礼を言う。
利己的な理由だよ。お前に殺されることが私にとって最善の贖罪かもしれない。そう思ったからだ。
それなら話を。
Senna rebooted her D-Sordo. The method she had chosen for her father's execution was death by her D-Sordo. The simplicity behind it laid the truth bare. The way she killed him did not matter. All that mattered was killing him at all.
すまない。
Atana still refused to raise his head.
どうして謝る。
お前に 父殺しの汚名を着せてしまうからだ。
殺せさえすればどんな恥ずかしみだって受けてやる。お前は母さんと妹を殺した。
事実だ。
しかもあんなむごい最後。
Senna could only act calm and collected for so long. As her emotions began to take control, she was seized by a fierce tremble.
お前には見せたくはなかった。いや、今のは聞き流してくれ。
なぜあんなことを。
過程を説明することは無意味だよ。お前は納得しないし、結果が改変されるわけでもない。
Senna trusted the tip of her D sword toward Hatano's head.
そうやってまた逃げるのか。
間違っていたのは私だ。それが全てなんだ。
お前には失望した。
まだ期待していたのか。何を。人を含めて世界は全て電気仕掛け。そう言ったのはお前だ、セナ。
Senna's shoulders trembled. For nearly 3 years, ever since Hatano had begun the Mana project, the two of them had rarely come into contact. Yet despite the significant time apart, Hatano had seen right through her, something which troubled her to no end. Distraught by the sheer discomfort she felt, the wavering of her heart morphed into nothing but pure fury, the spellingly form of reason she had still had within her.
セナ、惑わされるな。電気仕掛けならば、お前のその私を恨む感情もまた、ただの電気信号でしかない。
Hatano is just trying to overwhelm me. That's what Senna told herself. Calm down.
お前の言葉なんか無効だ。
あまり感情的な行動をと
Oops.
るな。でなければ、お前は矛盾する。その言葉を受け取ってはいけない。精神攻撃だ。判断を中止するんだ。
話は終わりだ。
Senna tried to take a stance with her D Sordo. But before she could, Hatano suddenly stood up. Kozue watched their exchange with unease, and when she wondered if she should interfere, the pain in her leg forced her to abandon all hope of doing so. She was not sad, but that did not stop her from weeping deep within herself. Hatano took one large step forward. Her response delayed, Senna switched to an offensive position, but in her attempt to brace herself, her feet slipped on the gravel. As her body shook and staggered, her stance began to collapse. Any sort of edge her appearance had once held disappeared. Edge. In its place came a great fear. Her hatred toward her father was what had given her strength to persist, but now that time has come to face him at last, she found herself deeply afraid. She did not quite understand why that was. All she knew was that the cause lay within the words he had just spoken. Hatano threw himself at her with tremendous speed. As she fell backward, ignoring both gravity and centrifugal force alike, she swung her enormous D-sword from below. The blade first scarred out the tile of the platform floor, then it slashed straight through her father's shoulder. It moved with fluidity, akin to a hot knife through butter. Her father's hands sent her flying backward. Fresh blood burst from her father's injury. Her eyes were colored with an expression of deep relief. Senna's teeth sank into her lip. Not even a second later, something pierced her father's chest at lightning speed. Tearing in through his back, it flew straight through the man's chest, very narrowly grazed Senna, then swiftly disappeared. Now blood gushed not just from his shoulder, but from his chest as well. The crimson liquid flowing from his wounds splattered against Senna's cheeks. A bullet? Having been thrown backward the moment Senna landed in her rear, her head shot right back up, and she frantically searched for the shooter.
おっとミスったっす
A man stood in the crossway between Shinsen Station Tunnel and the tunnel leading to Shibuya Station, the sole place illuminated by the gaping patch of sky above. He was holding a handgun.
でもまこの距離にしてはいい腕だと思わないっすか
Senna's father collapsed beside her. Half of his body had already soaked in blood. No. Were you protecting me? Overcome with disbelief, Senna fixed her gaze on the pool of blood spilling over the tile floor.
言葉は混沌だ。
Gasping for air, her father weakly spoke.
お前は素直すぎるんだ。セナ。そんなお前がとても悲しく、そして愛おしいよ。
The bullet had been meant for Senna, but Hatano had taken it in her place. She had been trying to take her father's life, but he had given it for her instead.
ふざけるな。
Senna tightened her grip on the D sword she held in her hand.
まあ別に構わないっすよね畑の親子にはどっちも死んでもらうつもりだったんで
An odd noise echoed throughout the platform, a sound Senna instantly recognized as a Noah 2 terminal. How long has that sound been going on for? Senna would not let it continue. The existence of a man who stepped between her and her father, a man whose gun had prematurely ended their resolution, was something she would not let continue.
よくも邪魔を。
But she stood up and fixed her eyes and head. The cries of an infant began to resound throughout the dimly lit platform. A sense of strange discomfort grew in her hands. For some reason, she could not comprehend. Instead of a sword, she was clutching a desiccated baby. In an action motivated by reflex, she cast it away from her. But immediately after she had done so, she realized the child was her own Emoto. Her sister, whom she had only seen once before long ago. Her sister whose name she did not know, and whose own mother had devoured her until hardly anything remained. That was the child before her. Large ovulations where chunks of meat had been bitten free covered her entire frame. Each tear in her dry body provided a window to view glistening fragments of white bone and pink scraps of flesh adhered to them. Senna began to tremble once more. She could not take her eyes off of it. She could not forgive herself for feeling disgusted at her own sister, let alone tossing her aside like filth. It was exactly like back then, when she had seen her mother's last moments, her mother who had died while ruled completely by madness. Still nestled within her mother's arms, her sister had been shredded to pieces and consumed, left only as a heap of pitiful remains. In response to the sight she had been forced to witness, rather than sadness or horror, what she felt was pure, utter revulsion. Remnants of guilt remained lodged deep within her chest. Despising her father was her way of averting her eyes from that emotion.
私
Even though a part of her very much knew that this was an attack brought on by a delusion, it reawakened feelings that had been sealed deeply within her heart, leaving her entirely emotionless. It was as if her wrists and ankles were bound. But Senna was not the only one suffering from such a state. such a state. Kozue was as well. An enormous mirror had materialized in front of the collapsed girl, and within it a reflection of her with legs covered in blood asked her a single question.
お前は誰？
Kozue froze in terror. Large tears began to flow from her eyes. The wound she wanted to forget. The past she never wanted to remember. Tears of deep decay began leaking from her heart and mind. She wanted to run away as far as her legs could take her. Desiring nothing more than to look away from the mirror, she wished to turn away. Yet foregoing her will entirely, her body refused to move. Herself, on the other side of the mirror, was not shedding even a single tear.
お前は誰？
Give me a second. Anyway, let's continue.
お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？お前は誰？
Oh man, we're just entering a lot more schizo territory here, man.
私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？私は誰？
She was collapsing in the Gistern fault. What the hell does that mean? What does that word mean? Let's see. Dipsless. A loss of axiomaticity. A deterioration of cognitive ability. A concept of psychology. Gestalt being the German word for form. The human brain proceeds without question what it visually sees as a based on the environment, circumstances, and knowledge gained through experience. However, when A's identity is rejected for some reason or another, the obvious becomes no longer obvious, and one falls into a state in which they can see A, but no longer able to perceive it as okay. Just like when she had lost all words so long ago. Just like when her heart and mind had been broken so long ago. She's losing recognition basically of herself. She's no longer able to see herself, as she herself recognized herself in the mirror. She lacked any certainty that it was her own voice. She lacked any certainty that it was her own hairstyle. I guess to further think about the phenomenon that was mentioned earlier, it's like, you know how when humans are able to look in the mirror and they're able to recognize themselves through the mirror. Well, this is because I was also looking through the mirror. But what happens if you look into the mirror and you felt like, you stop recognizing what you see that is reflecting on the mirror that is looking at the mirror as yourself. You know, that's probably just it. Anyway. She lacked any certainty that it was her own pair of eyes. She lacked any certainty it was the fullness of her own lips. She lacked any certainty that it was her own shape. She lacked any certainty that it was her own face.
私は誰？
君はコズピーだよ。
Her shape in the mirror had been the cusp of that dividing infinitely, but the voice that had suddenly burst into her mind had put salt on it.
コズピー。私はコズピー。
She would confirm her identity. Kosoe had returned to herself. Cracks ripped through the enormous mirror before her, and then it shattered into pieces. Kosoe searched for the voice of her savior. When her gaze arrived at the ticket gate, she recognized exactly who it was. Her real voice, the one that would have been lost forever, called out to him. Kosoe called out, not with her inner voice, but her real voice. I realized that it was the first time I ever heard her use it. Wait, when she passed by Takumi for the first time during her introduction, didn't she actually use her voice instead of like her inner voice there? Anyway, it was thanks to Kozubi that I managed to get over here so quickly. I'd been next to a police box at the top of Togenzaga when I heard her inner voice screaming for help. Running toward that voice had brought me here, and when I got here I saw Sena and Kozubi, faces pale from being shown the delusion I couldn't see, and Hatano-san, collapsed and covered in blood. I found them, but I was too late.
こいつはラッキーっすね。
A man with a gun in his hand was standing at the crossing. He twirled and whirled it around his fingers as if he was some sort of gunslinger. Contrasting heavily with the suit he was wearing, he had a rucksack under his back. A harsh mechanical noise was emanating from it. Suwa Mamoru, a detective from the Tokyo's MPD, 1st Division, Investigative Division. This wasn't the first time I'd run into him, and I knew exactly what he'd done.
もともとは目障りな畑の親子を処分しに来たんすけどね。西条くん、君が自分から火に飛び込んできてくれて感謝感激っす。君を見かけたら捕まえろってことになってるんすよ。
誰に？
内緒っす。
He smiled a flippant smile, one that was somewhat reminiscent of Detective Band's. But there was one key difference. Detective Band's smile had always been just an act meant to throw people off or rile them up. When it came to Suwa, however, that snide smile was who he truly was.
あんたはノロセの居場所を知ってる？
西条くんさ。
Suwa heaved a sigh, shaking his head in an extremely exaggerated motion.
口の利き方に気をつけてほしいっすね。自分の方が年上っすよ。
バンっていう人を殺したのはあんただ。
だから
刑事のくせに人を殺すなんて。
君には言われたくないっす。
I gripped my D-Sordo lightly,
あ
tightly.
んたみたいなやつに敬語を使う義理なんてないよ。
そんな舐めた口聞いていいんすか？殺すぞ。
Nice. Nice. I love how he went evil, man. I love his evil self. Even from a distance, it was clear to see the smile on Suwa's face had disappeared. Without moving from where he was, he gestured with his free hand like he was trying to shake something off. An impact, followed by pain. It was all too abrupt. it was all too abrupt sensation. When I looked at my shoulder in surprise, I saw a familiar looking cross pierced into it. No, it was no cross, it was a stake. A cross-shaped stake from the crucifixion case. It had come to me and took me too fast to see. The area was so dark. I hadn't even realized it was flying toward me until it had already hit me. Suwa had thrown it, without moving from his spot. He'd thrown it from that distance with pinpoint accuracy. I cautiously touched the stake. It felt cool, cold, and smooth. Was it a delusion, or was it real? The pain was growing more and more intense. I couldn't put any strength into my hand. I wasn't able to hold on to my D-Sordo anymore.
再現してやる
Suwa raised his voice in an attempt to suppress his rage.
貼り付け事件再現
Not even a moment later, Suwa was holding even more cross-shaped stakes in his hand. Doing his best to restrain his furious rage that was on the verge of pouring out, he fired up additional stake toward Nishido Takumi. Nice, a battle scene. Here we go. They disregarded all form of drag and laws of physics altogether. As if they possessed wills of their own, they sped intently toward Takumi's arms. 15 had found their mark thus far. Not a single one had missed. They had assaulted Takumi's shoulders, upper arms, wrists, palms, hips, thighs, knees, and chin. Blood spilled from every one of his deeply carved wounds.
絶対に外れないダーツってのはあんま面白くないけど
He already had another stake in his hand. Once again, he fired it off just like the others.
自分が万能の神になったような気がするんだ
I felt an incredibly strange sensation. He's probably not even listening to me anyway, Suwa thought to himself. Each and every wound carved into my body only made me feel more alive. Suwa hurled yet another stake toward Takumi, who hung his head at the mercy of his attacker.
俺はただの人間だけどなお前らと同等の力を手に入れ
All of it could be attributed to the rucksack the man was wearing on his back, a bag housing a Noah-2 terminal within it. With that, he could enjoy Noah-2's power even at that distance. He would become an artificial Giglamanyake. Suwa found himself wholly bewitched by its power. Suwa was wholly bewitched by its... I already know what's gonna happen, but I really like what they're doing here. He was among the fanatics who would commit the dirtiest of deeds in the name of the founder and his teaching. He was among the vanguards who would commit the dirtiest of deeds in the name of the founder and his teaching.
この力は神からの贈り物だ信仰のため信じる者のために戦えるんだからな
Suwa hurled yet another stake. It penetrated the nape of my neck. It penetrated the nape of Takumi's neck. I was wrapped with extreme pain. Pain that felt as if my whole body was being torn into two. Pain so horrible I felt as if I might go insane. Boiling and rootless bloodlust simmering in Suwa's heart, demanded to know just how much pain the boy could endure. Springing forth from the torture taking place, death began to rear its head. Springing forth from the torture taking place, he would make death rear its head into him. I was unable to resist, and while I still managed to put enough force into my legs to stop myself from falling over, Takumi was unable to resist, and while he still managed to avoid falling over. None of that could prevent the hail of stakes coming at him. None of that could prevent the hail of stakes coming at him. My chest, my stomach, my toes, my entire body. Takumi's chest, his stomach, his toes, his entire body. With no mercy in sight, stakes both thick and sharp were continually pounded into me. With no mercy in sight, stakes both thick and sharp were continually pounded into him.
虫ピンで標本にされた昆虫みたいだな。しかもカブトムシとか蝶とかじゃん。お前みたいなガキにはコガネムシあたりがお似合いだ。
I couldn't stand for another second. Takumi could not stand for another second. Willpower alone was all that kept me from collapsing. Suwa was baffled at what could possibly be keeping him from collapsing. But I was almost at my limit. But he knew the boy was almost at his limit. The field of vision was becoming pixelated. It was hard to see anymore. With eyes as empty as those, he could likely not see anymore.
遺言があるならいいな。ただし二重地味なんだ。
Lightly clutching the next stage, Suo was talking to me as if he had already won. Slightly clutching the next stage, Suo was talking to Takumi as if he had already won. The next would kill me. The next would kill him.
さっき童貞やろうって言った。
傷ついたのか。
Using his voice in a distance as a guide, I glared in Suo's direction. Though the light in Takumi's eyes was soon to die, he glared at Suo's direction all the same.
これが最後の一本。信仰の救いはお前にはやらねえよ。
I could sense the air tearing through the stake that Suo had hurled. Suo hurled a stake he had been holding.
知ってる。
The stake would serve as the cross, the messenger bringing both certain death and the promised gospel. Okay, it's the same. That would come to whoever it struck. Okay, it's the same.
童貞の妄想力はすごいんだ。
A dull thud resounded. Ah! I still love this. I still love this trick, man. I really love this trick. I really love what he did here. He deluded Suo that he was, you know, I deluded Suo that he was throwing stakes at Takumi. That's cool. That's so cool, man. The stake had deeply penetrated his forehead. An incredible burst of pain exploded within Suo, gushing forth from every part of his body. As if it had been entirely an illusion, the intense pain that had consumed every part of my body immediately disappeared. Suo let out a mute scream, writhing in agony. I let out a deep breath, then slowly licked my dry lips. I really like this fucking move, man. He was able to reverse this. That's actually kind of risky what he did. Actually, I don't fully know the mechanism because the straight crude manner is he literally took the stakes and he made sure that just before he was about to get the last stake, he decided to delude himself to switch. That's the crude manner. But there could be possibly he was already deluding him from the beginning. Which I would believe is was more likely what he did rather than he did the switch. But the switch was also cool. But really risky, man. Really risky. Oh, man. Suwa let out a mute scream, writhing in agony. I let out a deep breath that slowly licked my dry lips. Okay, already read that. An array of cross-shaped stakes penetrated Suwa's entire body. There was a single cross-shaped stake in my hand. When he looked up, he saw the cross-shaped stake embedded in his forehead. When I looked up, I saw the overcast, gloomy sky above.
復活の奇跡は物語で妄想なんだ。何をした妄想シンクロ。
Oh yeah, because they were having mutual they were having a delusion at the same time. An assimilation onto a delusion. Erosion onto the mind. Like two ripples negating one another, like two wavelengths resonating with one another. They were having delusion. They were both having delusion at the same time, so he took advantage of that. And the crucifixion case was the situation where it demonstrated itself. That is really tricky. Dangling together, melting together. A fate which the story is created by one, a fate which is the story created by another. Switching them out, switching them in. There's no way that's possible, Suwa thought to himself. Suwa's expression laid his thoughts bare.
神の先兵ならメシアと同じように朽ち果てろ。
I wonder if this is referring to someone else, not... Oh, Jesus. Takumi tossed the snake away. I tossed the snake away. Color was quickly fading from Suwa's field of vision. Light was quickly fading away from Suwa's eyes.
それと僕は救いなんかいらないよ。
Suwa could no longer reply. Without falling to the ground, he breathed his final breath. I made my way back into the station. Kozubi's eyes were wide, and her mouth hung open. She was completely stunned. Seeing all that must have really surprised her. Her leg was covered with so much blood, it was hard to look at.
小ズピ
I'm still surprised at what he did there. That was really he had like a good understanding of he had the understanding of delusion sync just from having one explanation and having the experience of the crucifixion case. But I think his mind was kind of primed for it, because the moment he saw the stakes, he thought he could probably do that. I don't know. I don't know how he took advantage of two, because they both deluded at the same time. So that I don't know, man. I still don't get it fully, but I like what he basically did there. Took advantage of that mechanism. Wait, I need to fix something. What the hell happened? I don't know what happened to my Migo figure. One of its supports kind of broke. I guess it's the weight, one of the weight issues. Anyway, but it's still standing right now, so it's fine for now. I'll probably do something to it. Anyway, without getting up from the ground, she nodded. It didn't look like she was able to stand on her own. Her shimmering eyes looked up at me.
たくみさん、今何が起きたの？
Kozubi, you're talking out loud.
あ、本当だ。
Putting a finger to her lip, she tilted her head in surprise. But she seemed to forget about it pretty quickly after that.
能力はすごいの？
All the things you can ask right now.
すごいよ。
Well, you know, Senna once told me ignorance was a sin, but I didn't quite agree with that. Not knowing things goes hand in hand with delusions. The less you know, the more delusions you can grow and search to the point of infinity, really. Oh, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. That kind of makes sense. I hate that made sense to me. Therefore, if you already know and have experienced everything, there'll be nothing left to fantasize about. And if there's one thing virgins definitely lack, it's experience. So it only makes sense that their delusions are the best around. Speaking of Senna, where was she? I searched the dimly lit platform for her. She was standing at the edge of the platform, hanging her head, and at her feet
畑野さん。
was Hatanoise, lying in the pool of his own blood. Yet he showed no signs of moving, leading me to realize he was already dead. I was too late. If anyone was going to know where to find Noah 2, it would have been him.
ノア2は渋谷駅のすぐ横にある。
As if she read my mind, with her eyes still aiming down at Hatano-san. At the course of her dead father, Senna began to murmur
こ
something.
の男が死ぬ間際に私の心に伝えてきた。渋谷駅の東口、ビルの屋上にある。今は閉鎖されたプラネタリウム。そこにノア2がある。
どうも。
I wasn't sure if I should have said something to her or just stayed silent. She hated her father enough to want him dead. And even though her wish had come true, from where I stood, she looked miserable as could be.
くそ。私をかばって。それで罪を償ったつもりか。
Her words were targeted at her father's lifeless corpse, while he said nothing in return, and he would never would again.
お前は自分の罪を認めた。その上で私に見せつけるように自殺したようなものだ。許せない。私はお前を許さない。
セナさん、心が泣いてるの本当はお父さん殺したくなかったのら。
It was just as Kozuki said, and with those words, Senna's usual resolute demeanor disappeared. Her shoulders trembled. Heartbroken, she fell to her knees.
どうして生きて罪を償おうとしないんだ。どうして私を一人にするんだ。どうして。
セナ。
西条、お願い。
Senna raised her head. The teary expression on her face now was nothing like the stern one she always wore.
ノア2を壊して。
Suffering from a terrible creep, she spoke with the fragility of a girl who had just lost the only family she had left.
僕を殺そうとしたくせに。君のお願いなんて聞く義理はないよ。
匠さん。
Turning my back towards Senna and Kozupi, I began to march down the tunnel to Shibuya Station. Before me were two giant gaping holes. A deep darkness stretched deep inside both of them. Passing through them would be the quickest way to get to Shibuya Station.
僕は僕の目的のためだけにノア2を壊す。絶対に。
I had a feeling Senna had said something after that, but I wasn't listening anymore. A single colossal device held the attention of two men. Inohana Kozo, a member of the House of Representatives, and Kuramochi Yudai, the founder of the Cosmic Church of Divine Light. An ominous hum continually clouded sounded from the device from Noah 2, beckoning a nod of satisfaction from the both of them.
5000人を殺すと言い出した時はどうなることかと思ったが、
調整には随分と骨が折れたよ。特に300人委員会に感づかれないようにするのはね。
ご協力に感謝します。
Norasa gave a very slight bow.
だがこれが完成した今、5000人などちっぽけな数字でしかなくなった。
早くも影響が目に見えて出てきているよ。人々の家畜化が始まっている。
これでいよいよ我らが世界を手に入れる日も現実のものとなったわけだ。
Inohana and Kuramochi looked at one another, exchanging sinister smirks. Norase, meanwhile, simply gazed at them. His face not even so much as twitching.
しかしノロセよ、貴様なかなか興味深い趣味を持っているようじゃないか。
何のことでしょう。
Inohana smiled crudely, then gesturing with his head toward the tableau erected near Noah 2.
なんとも芸術性にあふれるオブジェだ。ぜひわしにも一つ用意してもらいたいものだな。
素材ならば我が教団の信者の中からえりすぐりを提供してもよい。
倉持先生は気前がいい。
あれは餌ですよ。
餌？
ノア2をより完璧なものにするための。
まあそういうことにしておこ
う。それよりノア2が具体的にどれほどのことができるのか実演してもらいたいところだね。
もうそれはいい。早速やってみせたまえ。
Norase lightly shrugged his shoulders, his impassive facial expression remaining ever present.
では、このようなものはどうですか?
By the time his words reached their conclusion, the demonstration had already begun. In the blink of an eye, Inohana and Kuramochi came to realize that they were both holding handguns. Neither Noah 2 nor Norase had made a single movement, and yet this miraculous happening had become undeniable reality.
おお、本物そっくりだ。
まるで手品のようだよ。
手品と一緒にしてもらっては困ります。その銃の存在は現実。
Their eyes fixated on the handguns with their grasp. Inohana and Kuramochi nodded in satisfaction for a second time.
実に素晴らし
い。いかにも神をも超越する力だ。
この銃は記念にもらっておくとするか。
小物ですね。
To the other two men present in the room, Norasa's faint whisper was inaudible.
早速今後の計画を検討しよ
う。まずは300人委員会の排除。
ノロセ、ご苦労だったな。
今後のことは追って連絡する。
The two were thoroughly pleased with themselves and the project and moved to leave the premises with buoyant steps. And yet,
その必要はありません。
何？
どういうことだ?
Norasa's expression found itself changing for the first time. He narrowed his eyes, slightly raised his jaw, and stared at them from where he stood. His attitude was one of intense scorn, as if he was fiercely looking down on them. No. In truth, he was looking down on them.
計画は私が引き継ぎましょう。ただし、あなた方の考えているような低俗な目的ではなく、より崇高な理由のためにです。
Norris's tone remained civil and polite. Beginning to understand what exactly he was conveying, the two men naturally became infuriated.
貴様、裏切るのか？
神にでもなったつもりかね。
300人委員会が黙ってはおらんぞ。
お二人も300人委員会のメンバーでありながら、反旗を翻そうとしていたではありませんか。
Norris's eyes watched him carefully, and house within them was raw, unending contempt. His gaze was cold as could be. It was as if he was forced to study two monoliths of pure rotten filth. His gaze conveyed a very particular meaning, one that revealed he had only been using the two from the very start.
これは全て予定通りの行動ですよ。あなた方がここで死ぬことも含めて。
ふざけるな。
ざれ言を。
Kuramochi and Nohana aimed their guns at Norase. They moved to pull the triggers.
ざれ言ではなく。
The two guns fired simultaneously. Their roars echoed within the dome.
予知だったのですが。
And yet, it was not Norase who had fallen, but Inohana and Kuramochi. For some unfathomable reason, they had taken their sights off at Norase right before pulling the triggers and shot each other instead. Their deaths had been instant. The two compatriots had collapsed, then put holes in each other's heads, and now they were nothing more than lumps of meat who would never draw a breath again.
ノア2は我が手にあります。特物にはその意味がお分かりにはならなかったようだ。
Norasa's demonstration had been about more than simply showing off guns. Its purpose had been to make the two men mistake each other for Norase and take their own lives in the process. That was the real demonstration. And with the power of Noa 2, it had been beyond trivial to perform. Next, Norase turned toward his tableau. Affixed there was the figure of Sakihata Rimi. She had begged Norase to let Nanami go, and thus she had been taken hostage in her place, due possibly to the mental attacks by Nanami. Rimi's energy had long since faded, leaving her head pointed toward the ground as she hung affixed. Yet when Norase strode toward her, her shoulders ever so slightly trembled.
自分の手を汚さずに卑怯なことばっかり。あなたこそ俗物だよ。
The back of Norris's hand struck her cheek. Following this, he grabbed Rimi by the jaw and forced her to look at him. Even though nearly all life had left her expression, even as she desperately fought to keep her eyes open, her glare flared with an ardent blaze directly sold at Norris.
なぜ西条匠に助けを求めないのです？
Norris whispered close to her ear.
彼を巻き込まないで。
どちらの彼のことを言っているのですか？
二人とも。だよ。
私としてはどちらか一人で十分ですがね。IR2 を生み出したものとその完全なるコピー。二人とも化け物じみた力を持っている。彼らどちらかのコードサンプルが手に入ればノア2はより完璧へと近づくでしょう。神をも超える力を得るのです。
Rimi lowered her eyes in anguish. He fiercely tore away the hand that had been holding her jaw, and as his gaze rose up to Noa 2, a smile formed from the corners of his mouth.
さあ、呼びかけなさい。
Why is my nose so itchy? Let me close this one.
どちらでもいい。私は歓迎しますよ。
Rather, that was exactly what he had been waiting for. After surmounting all of Norasa's trials devised specific for him, Nishijo Takumi would arrive in this very location. As I made my way through the dark tunnel, I relied on the red glow of my D-Sordo to see. My steps naturally being quicker and quicker, I'd never walked on subway tracks at all before. As certain I was there was no train or coming, the mere possibility had me tense enough that I couldn't keep my mind from frantically whipping back and forth. It was a minute-long train ride between Shibuya Station and Shinsen Station. The distance between should have been less than a kilometer. Luckily for me, the tunnel in the Inokashira line didn't have too many cave-ins, so making it to Shibuya Station shouldn't have been the worst thing ever. But something was still weighing on me. Kozubi had warned me about something before we parted ways.
たくさんのぐもぐもドロドロっていう意識がね、待ち構えてるのら。コズピ、力になれないけど、気をつけてね、たくみさん。
Ooby goopy bloopy head consciousness. Right. At the very least, I imagined I wasn't gonna be like those. I was starting to have second thoughts. Fear crept up on me, and I started to feel incredibly alone. Making my way through a pitch black tunnel all by myself. A tunnel in which something horrifying was apparently waiting for me. How could I not lose my nerve? Whispers in the back of my mind urged me to leave the tunnel this instant, to find a way to Shibuya Station on the surface. But I didn't have that kind of time to lose. So in order to destroy the remaining fear I had, I thought of Rimi's smiling face. I trusted my D-Sordo forward to illuminate the tunnel ahead of me. Problem was its red glow only made my feelings of anxiety and foreboding even worse. Suddenly something felt off. I felt I caught a glimpse of something strange. Strange enough to make my gaze dart all around to try and find it. 10 meters ahead of me of the track, a small shadow was jutting out, one that hadn't been there a second ago. I squinted. Actually, it wasn't a shadow at all. Standing at about 20 meters tall, it was a Seiratan figure. What the? Why would that be in a place like this? I was hit with a sense of whiplash. It was way too out of place. I was in a dim underground tunnel, one of 4 train tracks that took people between stations. The general public didn't tend to go into tunnels themselves, especially this deep. I was right in the center of them, and yet the figure was there anyway. It was the post-awakening version 2, my absolute favorite, where her chest was pretty busted up. Wait a second. Was that my figure? The one I dropped her into chaos at the Scramble Crossing yesterday? It was. Then how the hell had she ended up here? She was standing perfectly upright too, with that bewitching smile of hers aimed straight at me. Oh man, that's kind of suspicious. I heard a voice. The voice that I always deluded was talking inside my head. Seira's voice. It happened in less than a second, faster than I could even blink. Seiratan, who should have been just a small figure, had instantly transformed to a life-size model. Oh shit! You're gonna fight your waifu! Then her smooth, silky, sexy body began to bend and twist like a real person's. Her hair rustled around and her huge tits jiggled. Was this a delusion? Oh, no. You're gonna fight your waifu, man. I heard another voice behind me. Whipping my head around in shock, I saw another life-size Seiratan standing there. But it didn't end there. To my left, to my right, and to my right, the amount of Seiratans was slowly multiplying. They cascaded out from the darkness. Just the sight alone sent a slight chill down my spine. The number of Seiratans had to have been at least the triple digits now. 100 Seiratans crowded around me and spoke in unison. Laughing gleefully, one of the Seiratans in front of me charged at me, and her slender arm swung her colossal metal bat. The impact was definitely real, but D-Sordo managed to take the brunt of the blow. It had been way too heavy of a strike. My hands started spasming before going numb. It all hurt like hell. That was when I realized it was all really happening. It wasn't just some delusion. It was reality. They were real booted beings. And every single one of them was out for blood. Oh my god!
遊んでくれないとぶっ飛ばしちゃうぞ。
僕の嫁なら道を開けて。
やだ。
それなら
I had to brute force my way through. I retightened my grip on my D-Sordo. The fiery emblem on my D-Sordo's lip began to burn. Even more red light began to emanate from the blade. I slashed the sword, tearing right through my waifu. The blade was weightless, smooth in how it handled. It drew whatever trajectory I wished it to. The blade bit into her shoulder before running through her body in its entirety. There had not been a shred of resistance, but it came to rendering her flesh and bones. It had hardly taken any strength from me at all. Seira's glamorous body split into half at an angle, and her entrails piled up. She collapsed on the... Oh my god, she's literally a person! Oh my god. Even her organs have been perfectly reproduced. They glittered and shone with pink gleam. I averted... Oh my god! They rebooted an actual... Oh my god. Oh my god.
ごめんセラ。
I was gutting my favorite character with my own two hands, and as an otaku, this was the hardest thing I ever had to do. Oh my god! She became a real person and he fucking killed her. Oh my god! Oh my god! My brain. I cannot take this shit. But still, I couldn't give up here.
強い強い。さすがタッキー。そんなタッキーが好き。もっと気持ちよくして。遊ぼうよ。めちゃくちゃにしてあげる。楽しい楽しい。
Suddenly, each and every one of the Seiras started speaking independently of one another. The flood of voices threatened to swallow me whole. I had to quit thinking of the Seira. That was what I had to tell myself. And so, in order to keep moving forward, I swung my sword at Seira's blocking my path.
どいてよ。
Rendering the darkness with a single horizontal strike, a red beam blazed across the tunnel. With four Seira standing next to each other, instantly turned into corpses. Another one grabbed me from behind. She wrapped her arms around my neck in a chokehold. Her large supple breasts pressed against my back. Another Seira tried to mount my leg, and I quickly punctured her in the face with my D-Sordo. A clearly cut molten hole formed where her smile used to be. It was hard to breathe. My neck was being constricted. I was on the verge of suffocating. Another metal back was coming right at me. I managed to writh around enough to change positions, and now my back was facing it. I felt Seira's body shudder, and her grip on my neck weaken. I shook her off my back, then I whipped around and swiped with my D-Sordo. 3 pairs of Seiratan legs came at me. My next strike would sever them at the thighs. 3 of them plunged into the ground in perfect harmony. I stepped on top of their backs. Seira started winding her metal back, and I swung my sword down on her. Her metal bat met with my D-Sordo, only for me to carve straight through it, and straight through the top of her head. No, my D-Sordo wasn't carving things. More than that, it would have been more accurate to say it evaporated anything that crossed within its trajectory. That's good to know. No matter how soft the object, no matter how solid the object, no matter how cold, no matter how hot the object, my blade instantaneously boiled and burned away anything it came into contact with, severing it from its source. These anime characters who had all the same face were all calling my name in unison, who continued to attack me just for the sake of it. It made my hair stand and yeah, this is fucking creepy, man. Like, it's just the idea and perception of it, but you know. To try and rile myself up, I let out a huge scream. Then, aiming for the Seira right in front of me, I plunged my sword straight into her chest. Seira grabbed onto my D-Sordo. Almost that exact same second, her hands evaporated. I lost all words. Dread began. Honestly, this is so fucked up if you think about it. Dread began to climb up from the depths of my body. Chills ran down my back. My entire body stiffened. This wasn't Seira. Seira would never have turned against me. I heard the sound of several of my wrists being, oh my god, being pulverized. I even felt the bone in my right arm creak, letting out a dull sound as they did. The blow resounded within my body, and then the sheer impact sent me flying. I smashed into the wall. My head collided directly with it. Oh my god. That would have been a concussion, I think. My vision warped and wavered. She rapidly swung her metal back down on top of me. I was getting bludgeoned. My left arm was minced from the elbow down. Even the concrete in the wall was dented from below. Oh my god! Holy shit. This fucking fight, man. Good thing the anime, they never showed this shit, man. They only showed like the outcome. This is far worse, man. This is far worse. Oh my god. Another metal bat swung straight into my leg. All strength left my right hand. The slightest movement caused a severe pain to scream out of my brain, but I ignored it and swung my D-Sordo. I cleanly severed the oncoming metal bat, but the pain of doing so forced a groan from my mouth. I came within arm's reach of the Seira in front of me, impaled her torso with her D-Sordo, and tore my way through her. Her blood splattered my hands. Despite just being an anime character, her blood was incredibly warm. Because she became a real person, bro! My mind went numb. Pain was all that ruled me now. I wanted to lock it all away. Me too, but I couldn't. As long as this pain endured, I would never be able to. This is so fucked up, man. Conspicuous amounts of clotted blood gushed out of my flattened left hand. It wasn't easy trying to hold onto the disorder in my right either. The pain seemed to reverberate from my very bones. Pain so bad I felt like I was about to pass out. I realized my entire body was soaked with sweat. The droplets stung my eyes. My vision was hazy. More and more Seiras approached from in front of me. The sound of cheerful laughter reverberated deep within my ears, making my very eardrums vibrate. With my injuries, I doubt I'd live for more than a few hours. That thought suddenly come to me, but it didn't really matter. I was just a delusion anyway. A being that would blink out of existence just as quickly as I blinked in. In the grand scheme of things, my injuries didn't really matter. I just needed to save Remy. I just needed to destroy Noah too. If this body could grant that, then I'd gladly give it all away. So...
一緒にいようよ。
Her metal back came down on me again. I figured I'd be able to avoid it, but the fatigue and pain slowed my reaction considerably. Oh my god! I was struck right in. Oh my god! I was struck right in the temple. I could feel its enormous spike staring into my skull. Oh my god! Shouldn't he be dead from here? The world shook. My vision went black, and things became even darker than they already had been. I could no longer see anything at all. Shouldn't he be dead from here? I tumbled over. As I tumbled, my mind went to my right hand. It was exploding with pain, but I was able to reaffirm that my D Sordo was still there. I swung out my flattened left hand in an attempt to regain my footing. An exposed bone collided with it. Oh my god! An impact akin to the electric shot ran through my entire body, causing me to black out for a second. Then I regained consciousness soon after. Bro, how are you supposed to survive this shit? My vision came back. I started to raise back up. The soles of my feet caught hold of the ground. Bro, how is he still alive at this point, man? Using centrifugal force, I've been blown away with. I charged into the horde of Seiras, swung my right hand. My bones creaked. Freshly spilled blood burst from the Seiras. The stench of blood refused to leave my nostrils. Was it my blood? Sarah's blood? Who even knew? It all blended together. All I knew was that I was covered in blood, and that the coat of red staining me had made my vision go blurry. I kept on carving into them. Who even knew just how many I cut down at that point? When would it end? In my mind, it was as if she was multiplying infinitely. Sarah clung to my right hand. I swung both her and my D sword around. But she wouldn't let go. Instead, she bent my... Oh my god! In a way, it wasn't meant to go. Oh my god! How the fuck is he surviving this bullshit fight, man? My joint came out of its socket. My strength left my arm. My D sword hit the ground. Nausea welled up in my stomach. I coughed and spluttered violently. Stains of blood spread through my mouth. I was pretty sure my shattered ribs were puncturing my internal organs. Any and every kind of pain was eating away at my body. I felt like I was going to go insane. But I was holding out hope. I couldn't help but hold out hope. I wanted to be set free, but I knew very well how impossible that was. So my hope was more wishful thinking than anything. With a big grin on her face, Sarah appeared in my face, and I drove my foot into her jaw as hard as I could. I forcibly channeled more strength into my right arm. All sensation in it was going numb. It felt as if my nerves were burning to a crisp. My entire body was boiling. And now the pain in my bones was rippling not just through my arm, but through my entire body. I was on the verge of shattering into pieces. Then I heard something that sounded like a growl of a beast. For a moment I wondered whose voice it was, only to realize it was my own. The fingers on my right hand faintly shifted. I grabbed my Disordo and conjured the delusion. I pictured it being bound in a cord. An instant became real. The sword was secured to my hand with the cord. Why don't he just delude himself that his Disordo has an attack that could wipe out the entire... that could blow the anything on in the tunnel or something like that. I needed to move to get where Remy was, beyond this darkness.
タッキー、どうして私と一緒にいてくれないの？
I spluttered out blood that gathered in my mouth. I was surrounded by heaps of Seira corpses lying on the ground. Other Seiras kicked past them on their way to me, producing ripples in the puddles of blood. I slowly shook my head.
だってセーラは
I gritted my teeth.
アニメじゃないか。
The very next second, every single Seira morphed into 2D. The ones who were standing became life-size cardboard cutouts. The corpses lying on the ground became covers for body pillows. They had all returned home, back to the realm 2D. Not a single one of them moved anymore.
チリはチリに帰らなきゃ。僕も後で行くよ。
In something of a moment of silence for the girls, I really hung my head over the wreckage. In the back of my mind, I was thinking that the gory, bloodstained sailor body below covers definitely wouldn't sell well. I was on the brink of passing out, but I managed to stave it off by biting my lip hard. And then I started walking through the dark tunnel once again. What the fuck? Dude, this guy is way too injured, man. How the hell could he even continue the fight here? No, seriously. He was, based on what his description, he was straight up gonna die. I mean, even before he got to the guy he was trying to go to. What the fuck? Okay, I got distracted. I got distracted. I ended up at a dilapidated building near Shibuya Station's east entrance. The surrounding scenery was dotted with partially or entirely collapsed buildings, leaving the building here as the sole intact survivor. On it was the dome of a rooftop planetarium that had closed down some years back. Wait, I'll be right back. Wait, I'm starting. Kind of not feeling well anymore. I was like, as much as I thought I'd finish this first ending today, I can't do anything about me feeling tired. Anyway, we should be able to finish this ending by tomorrow, right? We'll just continue again tomorrow. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching. At least we're in Final Stretch in the first ending. After the first ending, we will go for ending B, then the routes until we get the true ending to show up. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed.